I never thought that a simple act of checking my phone could lead to chaos and a near brush with the law. Suddenly, Karen thinks my phone is a gun, calls SWAT, and almost got arrested. Here's how it all went down. It was an average school day, students chatted, teachers hurried to their next classes, and everything seemed completely ordinary. As I entered the bustling cafeteria, I thought nothing of it. I grabbed a tray, got in line, and shuffled along, contemplating what to eat. With my tray filled, I scanned the room for an empty seat, and I settled into my usual spot, sitting alone, lost in my thoughts. Pulling out my phone, I intended to check my messages and maybe sneak in a quick game or two before the next class. Little did I know that this seemingly mundane action was about to turn my day upside down. As I casually scrolled through my texts, just going about my business, a sudden commotion broke out nearby. I couldn't help but look up, and there she was, Karen, known for her talent for stirring up drama. She was pointing directly at me, and her eyes were as wide as saucers. Panic practically oozed from her trembling voice as she shouted, "He has something dangerous at school!" The whole cafeteria fell into an immediate hush, as if someone had hit the mute button on life. Every set of eyes in the room focused on me, as if they were trying to make me disappear. My heart raced like it was in a race. I was utterly shocked. I mean, what on earth was happening? My gaze dropped to my hand, which was firmly holding my phone, and then it hit me like a ton of bricks. To Karen, in her heightened state of fear, my innocent smartphone must have looked like something really dangerous. Seriously, it was like a scene out of a crazy comedy. My voice shook as I stammered, "It's my phone!" But Karen, bless her heart, wasn't interested in listening to reason. She was already on her phone, calling for help like she was ordering takeout. Her voice echoed through the cafeteria like a siren, and she said, "There's a person with a gun at the school. Send help!" You could practically hear the collective gasp from my classmates, and a wave of fear spread through the room like wildfire. In that strange moment, I realized that no matter how weird things got, Karen was always there to make it even more dramatic. It was like living in a never-ending episode of a high-stakes reality show, and Karen, well, she was the star of the wildest episodes. Within minutes, the cafeteria had transformed into a whirlwind of chaos. Teachers hurriedly tried to get students out, and the principal initiated a lockdown protocol faster than you could say, lockdown. Sirens wailed in the distance, getting closer by the second as the SWAT team swooped in, armed to the teeth and ready for action. My ordinary phone had somehow become the epicenter of a full-blown emergency. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Amid the madness, Karen's hysteria hadn't waned one bit. She was practically doing a one-woman Broadway show. I told you, she yelled, pointing at me, as if I were public enemy number one. As the SWAT team entered the cafeteria, I held my phone high, desperately trying to show them that it was harmless. But their expressions were ice cold, showing they weren't taking any chances. It felt like time had stopped as they approached me, weapons drawn, and ordered me to drop my weapon. I tried to reason with them. "It's just a phone, guys! Seriously!" But Karen, who had now taken up a spot on the cafeteria table, was still in full-on drama queen mode. She chimed in, her voice dripping with faux distress. "He's trying to trick you! That's a deadly weapon! Get him!" The SWAT team didn't skip a beat. They weren't in the mood for debating the merits of smartphones in a crisis. They shouted louder, "Drop it now!" So with a heavy sigh and a shake of my head, I slowly lowered my phone to the ground like I was surrendering some sort of weapon of mass destruction. It was insane. Utterly insane. With trembling hands, I gingerly placed my phone on the cafeteria floor. The tension in the room was so thick you could cut it with a butter knife, and everyone seemed to be holding their breath as the officers cautiously inspected it. After what felt like an eternity, one of the officers finally realized it was just a run-of-the-mill smartphone, not a gun. Relief washed over me like a tidal wave. Karen, though, she was a different story. She looked embarrassed for a split second, but that faded quickly, replaced by a stubborn and unapologetic glare. There wasn't a hint of remorse in her eyes. She mumbled something that might have sounded like an apology to the untrained ear, but it was more like a grumbled acknowledgement. I couldn't help but let my frustration bubble up, and I said to her, my voice dripping with exasperation, "Karen, you nearly got me arrested, all because of a phone." Karen, maintaining her unapologetic stance, replied with a defiant tone, "Well, you can't be too careful these days. It looks suspicious, okay?" And just like that, the chaos slowly began to subside, but Karen remained steadfast in her stubborn belief that she had done the right thing. Life at school returned to its usual mundane routine, but Karen's reputation as the girl who almost called in the SWAT team over a smartphone was cemented. I couldn't help but shake my head in disbelief, wondering if Karen would ever see the humor in her wild overreaction. Wow, this story had me on the edge of my seat. Can't believe how a simple phone caused such chaos. Karen definitely needs a reality check. Has anyone else had encounters with Karens like this? I never expected a simple trip to my pediatrician's office would turn into a terrifying encounter with an entitled mother. Little did I know that a harmless conversation about my Pokemon-themed bag would escalate into a tense confrontation. With my heart racing and my voice trembling, here's how it all went down. I'm 18 years old, and I still go to my pediatrician for yearly checkups and whatnot. This is relevant, trust me. My doctor's office is located in a fairly bad part of town, the same area I grew up in, so I'm always careful to keep my belongings close to me at all times. It's not like people would get a lot from me if they snatched my bag, but I keep some personal items, like medications, in my bag. Since this is a pediatrician's office, there are always plenty of children in the waiting room. My brother, 20 years old, barely young enough to keep going there, and I were there a couple of weeks ago for our yearly well checks and flu shots. Since we have the same doctor, our appointments were scheduled at different times. My brother went back first while I sat in the lobby with my bag between my legs, playing on my Nintendo Switch. Our dad had run across the parking lot to pick up a few things from the grocery store, which is fine, considering we're both legal adults, so I was just sitting by myself in the corner. This adorable little sick boy, maybe 10 or 11 years old, came over and asked what I was playing. I told him I was playing Pokemon, and he asked if he could watch. I agreed, both wearing masks, and angled myself so he could see my screen. We talked a bit about Pokemon, which I could tell he loved a lot, and I showed him my bag. A bit of information about my bag. It's one of those small backpacks made to be like a purse that you can wear on your back. It's a cute Pokemon-themed bag that goes with me everywhere. I bought it from a store that donates meals to those in need depending on how much you spend, so the bag was more expensive than some would think. $80, $90, but I didn't mind spending so much since I was getting a lot of meals donated. A few more minutes passed by and Sick Boy's mom calls for him. I tell him it was nice talking to him and give him a wave as he heads to the opposite side of the room. I go back to my game, but no more than 20 seconds later, someone appears in front of me, standing over me like some kind of predator, looking down at its defeated prey. I look up to see this lady standing there, looking almost the complete opposite of a Karen. She has long, natural-looking hair, light makeup, a simple t-shirt, and leggings. She was honestly very pretty, except for the smug look she had on her face. Let's call her Entitled Mother. I have to mention, I've been diagnosed with GAD and a panic disorder, so my reactions tend to be a little extreme. I say, "Oh, hi, can I help you?" Entitled Mother says, "My son told me about your Pokemon purse." I had put my bag between my feet on the floor with one of my legs inside one of the straps, so it would be harder for anyone to snatch it. I reply, "Oh yeah, your son is a sweet kid." Entitled Mother counters with, "Yeah, well, you're too old to be playing with Pokemon stuff. You should give your purse to my son." At this point, I was getting a weird vibe from her, so I had tucked my Switch into my bag and slipped my other foot through the other strap. I say, "I'm sorry, ma'am, but I spent my own money on this bag, and I would prefer to—" Entitled Mother interrupts. "See? You're old enough to have a job. You're too old to be playing with Pokemons." I'm getting a bit anxious because she's literally standing over me, so I say, "Miss, please back up. You're way too close to me. I'm not giving you my bag. Even if you paid me the $80 I spent on it, I wouldn't hand it over." Entitled Mother accuses me. "You're lying. A bag like that doesn't cost that much. You just don't want to give my precious son your bag." Sick Boy, trying to defuse the situation, pleads, "Mama, please, leave her alone. I just said it was a cute bag." Entitled Mother, still ignoring Sick Boy, presses on. "Why are you even in a pediatrician's office? You don't have a kid. Are you just here to watch all the kids like some kind of pervert?" Feeling very anxious and now raising my voice, I say, "Miss, I'm 18. I've been coming here since I was a baby. Now please step away from me." Entitled Mother persists. "No! You don't belong here! You—" Suddenly, there was a hand on her shoulder. She spun around, ready to yell at someone else when she finds herself staring directly at my dad's chest. "Oh, did I mention this lady is about 4'8"? My dad is 6'1" and ex-Navy. He's staring down at her, just daring her to say something out of line. When she turned around, she stepped far enough away from me that I could slip past her and into the back room, as my name had been called to go back. The nurse gave me a paper bag to breathe into, as I was hyperventilating and crying at that point. This was the same nurse I see most of the time when I come in for my birth control shots, and she's known me since I was little, so she sits with me to calm me down before taking any of my vitals. After my appointment, I went back out into the lobby, clutching my bag in my arms, relieved to see that the mother wasn't there. My dad and brother were waiting for me, so even if she were there, I would have 2 6+ bodyguards. My dad told me the lady tried telling others that I was a jerk, but no one listened. Most of the staff knew me since I was in every 3 months. And she got kicked out. My dad took us out for ice cream after everything, so yay. All this over a Pokemon backpack. I'm looking for a small wallet to keep my cards and cash in rather than carrying my bag with me everywhere. It's important not to let others dictate what you should or shouldn't carry with you. Age should never be a factor in determining what kind of bag you can enjoy. Many people, regardless of their age, still proudly use bags featuring their favorite characters like Pokemon, Dragon Ball Z, Legend of Zelda, and more. Whether it's a flyleaf bag or any other type, there's no shame in expressing your personal style and enjoying what you love. I had just finished my duties at the store when I witnessed a confrontation unfold. A customer, Karen, accused one of our employees of undercharging her, and things quickly escalated. Little did I know, this was just the beginning of a bizarre and unsettling encounter. Here's how it all went down. This just happened at the store where I work. I did not at any time engage with this person. I just sort of overheard most of it, then heard about it from those who were involved. Before we begin, I know there will be people who end up hearing this and thinking that I made this up. I wish I could say that I did. I work at a store that sells electronics and stationery, and today, as the new flyer started, I spent most of the day running around trying to ensure that the prices for our products reflected the changeover. That's basically what I was doing throughout the course of what happened, with some exceptions. Also, because it does come up, I am a key holder. While I was scanning signs in another aisle, I heard a page through the headset radios that a woman needed help buying a laptop, which is where Tech Guy enters the story. The first real indication that Karen was going to be a problem happened after she told him she was looking for a laptop and wasn't sure which one would suit her needs when he tried to guide her to a specific laptop that he had in mind, and she refused. How about you start walking and I'll follow you? You don't get to tell me where I'm supposed to go. Eventually, he took her to a section of the store where we had Chromebook laptops on display. I wasn't paying that much attention to what was being said after that until I heard her ask him a truly bizarre question. Karen asked, "Okay, so this laptop is $250. Do you think I would be able to live off $250 for the rest of the month? Keep in mind, this is the 11th of October, so we're only just getting to the middle of the month." Tech Guy replied, I don't know. Karen pressed, "Why not? How could you not know?" Tech Guy responded, "Because I don't know you well enough to make that kind of an assumption." Karen insisted, "Well, I can tell just by looking at you that you wouldn't be able to live off $250 in a single month. So, do you think that I would?" Tech Guy still refused to answer, and after a bit more back and forth, the subject changed. I continued working, trying to mind my own business, but I still managed to catch something that kind of made me stop. I'm not sure what the context of the comment was, and even after asking him, I still don't really get it. But she said something about him, she used the general you term, being a slave to something, which made me start to listen in again, but I don't know how it connected with what she said next. Karen continued, "So, God made 4 seasons, but we split those seasons into 12. Do you know why? To hurt him? That's why. And it was those Jews." I didn't hear the rest of what she said because I was sincerely floored by what she seemed to be insinuating. For his credit, Tech Guy refused to engage or to give an opinion any which way. We did exchange a look between each other when Karen wasn't looking, and I could tell just by that alone, he was trying so very hard to keep it together. He had only been working at the store for about 3 months now, and while we don't normally chat very often, I know he's a pretty chill guy. After a few minutes of this, Karen, I guess, gave up, because she just kind of sighed in a dismissive tone. Karen said, "So, I think I've decided to get this laptop, so go get it for me." At this point, I kind of wanted to know what this woman's deal was, in particular the part about her calling him a slave. So when he went to page for a manager, I piped up that I was available and took him to our lockup area to pick up the laptop she wanted to buy. I asked, "What is wrong with this woman? Did she call you a freaking slave?" Tech replied, "No, but I don't think I actually understand what she was talking about. She keeps jumping topics, but I think I'm going to take the laptop to one of the cash registers and get one of the cashiers to cash her out." So as he's leaving the lockup area, I, deciding to be helpful, called the cashier over the radio to let her know what was going on and that the laptop should be reaching her shortly. But after a minute, she paged me back and said, "I don't think that's happening." When I went back out onto the floor to investigate, I saw him with his back to me, and the lady grilling into him, with the laptop in between them. I guess she didn't appreciate him telling her to go meet the cashier at the register. Figuring that this guy needed saving, I tried to page for another worker to take over for him, specifically a manager, just so that he could escape. That's when store manager came over the speaker. Apparently Karen had been here before in the store, though it must have been either when I was off shift or on break, because this was the first time I'd ever even heard of her before. Store manager said, "Don't bother, she's not all there, and she won't talk to anyone wearing a mask. Full disclosure, ever since the 2020 virus, I've been masking up, double masking actually, because even though most people don't view it as that big an issue anymore, I refuse to take any chances, and there are a few people who work with me who agree. Unfortunately, the supervisor, who was also working in the electronics section, is of the same mindset, so neither he nor I could jump in to assist. at least not without making things worse. But I guess she didn't like the way he was cashing her out, because the next time I saw her, about 5 minutes later, store manager was cashing her out on another register. Tech guy was safely behind cash, sorting through some of the signs that were printed. When I talked to him at this point, he was fairly convinced that the stuff she had been saying was an attempt to rile him up, or to at least give her an excuse to kick off about whatever he had said in response to her questions. But he didn't play her game. He did ask me if there was a rule that let us refuse service to specific customers, especially ones with Karen's disposition. But as we're chatting, Karen gets animated with the store manager, accusing her of improperly counting her bills. She was paying with mostly $10 ES, apparently. Then she found an issue with the price the cash register was showing for her purchase, saying something about it not being right, and that it was in response to some theory that she had been telling the store manager all about. At one point, while Karen was rifling through her bag for something, the store manager kind of wandered over to where I was standing with the tech guy. Store manager said, "Honestly, I'm about ready to process a refund and tell her she can't come back." I replied, "It's your call, but if you do, I'm behind you 100%. Store manager continued, "She's saying that the registers are wrong and that we're not charging her enough for the laptop. Even after I pulled out a calculator and showed her the math, she says I'm too dependent on the computers to tell that she's right. You can't tell this woman she's wrong, she just doesn't get it." After that, store manager went back to Karen, who continued to have a problem with the price that she had paid. Finally, she held out a roll of coins that turned out to be nickels, and a couple other coins before showing them, one by one, to the store manager, who says that we won't accept them though. Karen then leaves in a huff, telling us to give the coins to the Bank of Canada instead. Store manager put them into a plastic baggie, then sent a general message out to all staff instructing everyone to only refund what the receipt says Karen is entitled to, not what she says she's entitled to. Apparently, Karen also has a habit of buying from us, then returning the item sometime later within the return window, and that she can take the baggie with the money with her. Then she went out for a much-needed smoke break. I don't know if my store manager is planning to ban Karen. I should hope so, if this isn't the first time she's pulled this kind of stunt. But from the way she explained it to me later, she fully expects her to at least attempt to return the laptop. By the way, it might be a good idea for everyone to carry a mask with them. If they happen to see Karen, they can just put on their masks. After all, if she refuses to interact with someone wearing a mask, she won't be able to buy anything. If you enjoyed today's stories, check out the other videos on your screen now. Submit your own stories at you'rethejerk.com. Subscribe now or you're definitely the jerk.